If you need mapped guidance by a visual guide on hand for navigation, if you want to head to the track to do intervals or repeats with a plethora of various metrics, if you want notifications if you're above or below a certain threshold, you can do that. If you have a stride foot pod or an external heart rate sensor, this app easily pairs with your Apple Watch to utilize those features. I gotta sneeze out. Excuse me. Hello and welcome. Thanks for stopping by the Time to Run channel. My name is Joel, and today I'm going to be going over one of my favorite running apps of all time for the Apple Watch. But before we get to the review, please be sure you hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when I put out more content like this. If there was anything you liked about this video, please let others know by liking and leaving a comment down below. Alright, here is my review of the WorkoutDoors app when used on the Apple Watch. Okay, today I'm going to be doing this review with the assistance of my running partner, the Apple Watch Series 5. And just to clarify, this app by no means is a new app. It, in fact, has been in the App Store for about 5 years, so not too long after the Apple Watch Series 2 is released. However, the developers have put a lot of work into this app over the years. In fact, it was only just a few months ago that they've added the ability to pair external sensors, which in the past was something of a problem if you had multiple sensors or devices you relied upon to track necessary metrics. It's really been a net positive for all of us because if you're like me and you love using your Stride Foot Pod for not only your power but other metrics like the Foot Pod provides, you can use WorkoutDoors and the UI for that. Or if you like using a chest strap heart rate sensor over a wrist-based heart rate sensor, then you're in luck because they've just added compatibility with multiple brands such as Wahoo. And just to clarify, yes, you can use multiple sensors for the same workout at the same time. So if you have a cadence sensor for your bike, as well as a chest strap and a speed sensor, whatever it is, all of those will send data to your watch for your workout. This app works with Apple Watches that are supported by watchOS 5.0 or newer, iPhone OS 12 or newer. So looking at the Mac Tracker app, it appears that it works with the Series 1. Not to be confused with the first Apple Watch that was released in September of 2015. The Series 1 was released in September of 2016 and was discontinued in 2018 by Apple. From what I would guess is that prior to the release of the Series 2 in September 2016, Apple likely did a minor update to the first generation watch, the one that was released in 2015, and rebranded it as a Series 1. I realize I'm getting into the weeds, but I just wanted to clarify that right out of the gate, that if you bought the Apple Watch in 2015, that watch unfortunately is not supported, even if you did spend $45,000 on it. Getting back on track, the watches I've done my testing in have been on the 42mm Series 3 Sport with the cellular feature, and the 44mm Series 5 with the cellular feature on that, both in space gray. And from my experience, the functionality of the app doesn't vary between the two different watches. I would say the battery life is better for me in the Series 5, and you can certainly get the added benefit of the larger screen, as well as the much higher definition display as well on the Series 5. But if you currently have a Series 3 or are in the market for an Apple Watch, as far as functionality, the Series 3 will definitely serve you well. You might be asking if I would recommend you buying the Series 3 at this juncture. Absolutely not. The new watchOS announced during Apple's most recent WWDC is expected to drop sometime after Apple's September 7th event of this year. However, Apple stated that the newest watchOS will not be supported for the Series 3. It's the first watchOS that will essentially put the nail in the Series 3 coffin. In other words, the Series 3 is now considered obsolete, so no more updates in the future. The Series 4 and the SE and any newer devices will be supported by the new watchOS, and you can expect that download in a few weeks after Apple's September 7th event. That being said, if you're an Apple Watch user and you use the watch for your workouts, you're likely familiar with Apple's native workout app. It's very helpful for those basic workouts, anything from running, cycling, swimming, rowing, yoga, surfing, core workouts, functional, traditional strength training, and the list goes on. It's an app that Apple has invested a lot of time into in order to create for the user measurable and accurate data so you can record your workouts. The running function in the app has a few more customizable features that are a bit more robust than other workouts in the native app, such as indoor versus outdoor runs, rolling pace, pace goals with notifications if you vary too far above or below what you've preset as your threshold. However, if you're wanting to change up the workout, it's not as useful if you wanted to go to the track and perform, say, 6 by 800 meter repeats at 7-minute mile pace with a 60-second recovery period in between each interval. It doesn't allow you, unfortunately, to get specific with your interval training. Yes, you can set some basic customization options such as desired pace and notifications. However, there's no viewable maps related to navigation. Like I said, there are no customizations for your interval days, speed sessions, hill repeats, and there are currently no way in the native app for you to pair something like a stride foot pod or an external heart rate monitor or a cadence sensor to work with the native app. Of course, if you have the hardware, and if the company for said hardware has had their developers make an app of their own, you can obviously use that. A good example of this is Stride on the watch. You can use all the features of Stride on the watch exclusively on the watch. However, alternatively, Wahoo products specifically are a great example of hardware manufacturers that did not go through the process or effort to build an Apple Watch app as a companion to their hardware. Wahoo products only work on the apps they build on the phones. And this is likely due to two reasons. Many cyclists use Wahoo speed and cadence sensors, the same people who use their phones as heads-up displays if they don't already have one of the Wahoo Bike computers. And two, I would guess Wahoo wants you to use one of their own watches. This is where WorkoutDoors steps forward and says, hold my beer. This app is, for all intents and purposes, WorkoutDoors' answer to Garmin, Wahoo, Coros, or the Polar watches. The first notable feature is Maps. This gives you visual assistance of where your route is relative to where you are. You can download tiles of your city, common routes to your runs, or other areas you plan to explore. So, if you're someone who doesn't like to bring their phone along on a run, you can still have a map when you're out there on your run. You can have the option to occasionally save your workouts, use long or short breadcrumbs if you're going to do a trail run versus a track. You can set up haptic notifications, say if your GPS signal is low, to name a few features. The point is, you can get really into the weeds with these customizable features, which is honestly something I love. I'd rather have more options than less. I don't think I would get much argument there. With the ability to upload GPX files directly to your watch, you can create GPX routes by exporting them from Strava or Garmin. All right, next up, intervals. By far the biggest incentive I've had by purchasing this app was to be able to fully dial in my speed training with the app. There are so many customizable features in the WorkoutDoors app. It's crazy. As an example, if you're someone who likes doing your warm-ups with heart rate, you can build that in. Pace, cadence, and power with an external sensor. Miles per hour, heart rate are just a few ways you can define the structure of your workouts. You could say, I want to do X amount of miles or minutes, and once that's been fulfilled, it can transition to the next portion of your workout automatically. You can then do your interval sprints based upon pretty much any running metric. I've done HIIT workouts where on my bike, if I hit a certain heart rate threshold, it can automatically kick me into my next recovery period. And once I've hit a low heart rate threshold, it can start up my next high intensity repeat. It can even show you how far ahead or behind your target pace you are. So in here, you tap on the ellipses, you go to interval schedules, you can scroll down here at the bottom. And if I were to do my 5K intervals, like I was showing you here, then it would let me start it there. So warm up 20 minutes, target tells me my target. Okay, so this is my warm up screen. So it's giving me a timer, a countdown timer, my pace, my cadence, if those were all currently working and stuff like that, and then my miles. So it says warm up for 20 minutes. And then this is nice, so the nice little button, so you can press new interval here. And then it will kick you into fast for 200 meters with a specific pace. So that's defined down here. So miles, interval remaining for that, your interval sets, how many you have left versus how many you've completed, cadence, power, pace, and then so on and so forth. It can give you audio cues. It can tell you what your target goal or pace is supposed to be. It can even give you the option to have a button set up to start your next interval. Another awesome feature is that you can have multiple screens accessible at a swipe. So you can actually scroll between different screens here. And here's the maps, here's the miles I've traveled. This lays out what you're actually in at that specific moment, how many calories you've burned, and then your current beats per minute. And then you have different settings here, so different customized workouts. So this one is for my Stride foot pod. This is kind of nice because it gives you a different look with a lot of metrics on the side and on the bottom while still using a map. So if you want all your heart rate data complete with current, average, and graph detail, you can build a screen for that. Same goes for pace, or if you have an external power or cadence sensor, you can build that in as well. Another great thing to note, when I've reached out to the developers about questions or updates, they've been very prompt at returning my emails and giving me the answers to my questions. There are a few things I've noticed about the app that are worth mentioning. No deal breakers for me, but I would still want to mention them just in case. This app doesn't give you feedback on how your recovery is going. So if you're used to something like Garmin's Body Battery or Stride Running's Stress Balance, that's missing here. But from my experience, usually it's fairly typical with runners that we all have kind of a general idea of when we should be taking a rest day. Another downside is if you're currently in a workout and a metric you previously planned to use was one you forgot to add to your screen, there's not really a great way that I've found that you can use that or view it unless you've added it to one of the other customizable screens. For example, if you set your recovery period to be based upon a certain time, i.e. like a 2-minute recovery, but if you forgot to add the countdown timer to the watch face, then you're kind of stuck until you end the workout. If you originally planned on using power as a metric for your warm-up, but at the last minute you change it to pace, but you forgot to add that and change it on the screen to reflect the change, you either have to end the workout or just roll with it. But those things are pretty minimal, and none of them have really pushed me away from the app. So then this is a good example of you need to make sure you put in, if you've changed it recently, what your new defined warm-up target would be, or duration rather, and that's going to be for this 20 minutes. But other than that, that's pretty much the extent of my gripes, which I would say have never been a deterrent for me using the app at all. So I've used multiple apps on my cellular watch between Apple's native workout app, Strava, Nike Run Club, and Stride, and while they all have their strengths, I'll say that, this by far is the most robust and customizable app. It's the app that I recommend the most anytime anyone ever asks me what app they should be using on their Apple Watch for their workouts. So let me know in the comments section down below what workout app you love the most. Maybe it's Stride, Strava, maybe it's the native app itself. What's a feature mentioned in this video that you found helpful and wanted to incorporate into your next training block or in your weekly runs? So, in summary, if you need mapped guidance by a visual guide on hand for navigation for the trails, this app has it. If you want notifications if you're above or below a certain threshold you've set, you can do that. If you want to head to the track to do intervals or repeats with a plethora of various metrics, such as pace, heart rate, for certain times or specific distances with warm-ups, cool-downs, rests, and recovery in between, this app has all of that. If you have a Stride foot pod or an external heart rate sensor, this app easily pairs with your Apple Watch to utilize those features. So cadence and power and other detailed Stride metrics can be used, so you can train in that way. This app has so many features, it can be a bit overwhelming, but if you're like me, you'd rather have more options of multiple metrics at your disposal. And if you love all those things, then you'll love this app, for sure. And if none of the features that I mentioned in this app sound like you would ever utilize, then I would just recommend continuing to use the native app or Strava or anything that you've been using thus far. So finally, let me know if you have any questions in the comments section down below. If there's something you think I missed, let me know and I'd be happy to answer any further questions. Until next time, if anybody asks you what your favorite running channel is on YouTube, just tell them it's time to run.